Ghost Stories, and The Evil Spirits Part 1, coming up on Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories YouTube channel, episode 11, sponsored by Caselet.com. Caselet.com. Design your unique and very affordable phone case with AI. Create your own stunning, one-of-a-kind phone case design using the power of artificial intelligence. Shop Caselet.com. Now, from Doc Moore's studio on Oahu, Hawaii, high up in the central Oahu Mountains, here's your host, Dr. Stephen B. Moore Sr. Aloha and welcome. Good evening. I'm your host, Stephen B. Doc Moore Sr. Tonight, I will present an interview with one of my subscribers who shares her supernatural events and encounters. And I will also give you an excerpt from my book, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories. This is part 1, and it's called The Evil Spirits. We'll begin this show with the first-person accounts from a caller to my studio who's also been a good friend and has experienced life with the evil spirits that can also come and haunt everyone and anyone, including people just like you. Let's hear her first-person accounts.
Okay. One day in late September, my daughter came to visit us in Japan, and she ended up having her baby at the hospital. At that time, there was 2 other women who gave birth besides her that night. When she was taken to her room to wait for her baby to be brought, she happened to look out the window and saw a short black figure with long hair running angrily across the balcony. And she said it gave her chicken skin. Shortly after that incident, the nurse arrived with her baby, and she asked the nurse, "Do they clean the outside ledge?" And the nurse said, "No, why?" And she told her what she saw. The nurse looked spooked, and she said, "Let me close the window." And then I came into the room, and she told me what happened and what she saw, and I said, "Don't worry, I'm here." Later when her dad came, he told her while he was watching her son, he saw the same figure, but this time that figure shouted angrily and jumped high in the air and disappeared. And he got chicken skin. Anyway, when she left the hospital, she didn't think about it. 2 months later, she flew to Northern Cal and went to stay with my father. Shortly after that, her aunt gave her son a grape. He was choking and almost died. But she was able to get the grape out and sweep it out of his mouth and hit him on the back. He cried, but he was okay. Then a month later, her grandfather's friend, JJ, died. 2 weeks after his other gambling buddy died. And then a month later, he was followed by his wife. And then the next 2 months, her grandfather's next door neighbor died. She thought it was strange that these people connected to her grandfather all died. And then a month later, tragedy struck when her best friend died. And her best friend had gotten into an argument with her father. So her father was never able to make up with her when she had died. So he died of a broken heart. And then she remembered something. All those months ago, when she saw that figure on the ledge, she realized it was an onryo. It's a Japanese vengeful spirit who will take 6 lives of the person that it saw. It It couldn't take the three mothers and infants that night, so it followed her to America and took 6 lives of those people close to her, which was her grandfather Saul, 2 friends, his next-door neighbor, and her best friend and her dad. She hasn't seen that spirit or felt his presence since.
And there's more to go along. Just listen.
Okay. 2 graveyard spooky tales. One night when my brother was in high school, him and his best friend were walking the street, and they started to bark like a dog and thought it was funny. So he would bark, and his friend echoed the bark. They did this around 4 times. Then they spotted a dog and barked at it, and it answered them, and they looked at each other and laughed. But then when they turned around to bark at the dog, it was gone. They looked at each other confused until they saw that they were right next to a graveyard. My brother looked and thought it was a haint, so he broke off running, and his friend grabbed his shirt and said, "Oh no, you're not leaving me." And they ran away together. Needless to say, they never walked there again. My friend was working the graveyard shift as a security guard at a graveyard. He figured it's easy pay and not busy because he just sat in the car and drove around the property once an hour. Around 3 a.m., he was cruising by the property and saw an old lady pushing a wheelbarrow, and a boy and a dog was right next to her. So when he called out to them, they didn't say anything. He shined a light on them, and they were no longer there. He thought, what the heck? So he decided this is not for him, and he quit. Then he decided, I want to be an EMS med tech. The pay was good, and he was able to rescue people, so he was happy. And this time when he was so he worked this thing for like maybe 3 months. And this time he was in the back of the ambulance with the corpse. When the ambulance drove away, the corpse sat up and growled at him. He said he doesn't know how, but he was running down the street when the ambulance made a U-turn and caught up to him. And they said, "Man, what the hell are you doing?" He told them that corpse came back to life. They laughed at him, but he thought, after that experience with the graveyard and this, he's through working with death. One night, my daughter was doing her hair, and she got this horrible chill. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw this tall, black, shrouded figure, like a grim, and it headed into the living room where her daughter and son were sleeping. As soon as the figure entered the living room, her daughter let out a loud shriek and kept screaming, so she went to investigate. Her son was watching TV, but the baby was screaming, so she picked her up. The poor baby was shivering, and so she told her, "That's all right, baby, Mommy's here." She didn't see the figure, but she still felt his presence, and so did the baby, because the baby refused to sleep in that room. So she took the baby with her to finish her hair. And when she finished, she came back into the living room after the baby fell asleep to put her back in her basket. She instantly screamed and refused to sleep, so her mom took her to the room where she fell asleep. She doesn't know what that was about, but she was definitely scared.
That was spooky, frightening. I'm telling you folks, first-hand experiences and accounts can tell you a great deal about encounters with the supernatural and the paranormal. And this lady will be back on episode 11, part 2, with her experiences. But right now, we're going to go to an excerpt from my book, Doc Moore's Collection of Horror Stories YouTube channel. And this story is called The Evil Spirits, part 1. I got this story when I was stationed in Germany back in the 80s. And I had to go to Berlin, which was behind the Iron Curtain still, if you remember the wall, the Berlin Wall. Well, while I was there, I was listening to some old German people talking, and they explained to me about this place that was haunted, and it stemmed from World War II. and that some spirits were so evil in life that they couldn't let go, and they continued to be evil in death. And here's this story that I got. And I wrote this story, and I thanked them for the information, and I also did some more research. And here is the excerpt from my book. It's called The Evil Spirits, Part 1. This is an excerpt from my book, Doc Moore's collection of horror stories, stories of the supernatural, the paranormal, and the macabre from around the world. This is called The Evil Spirits. People were scared. They were afraid to be alone in the building. They especially did not want to stay in the building after dark. People did not want to be in the basement, particularly in the storage room. They were hesitant to use the basement storage room during the duty hours. They would not go down there in the evening at all. No one wanted to be left alone in the offices that were former cells in the basement. People said they constantly heard screams, footsteps with no one in sight. Clocks were ticking in rooms that did not have any clocks. Doors opening and closing. The sounds of people running up and down the basement stairs. And the constant stream of voices were speaking in German. The kind of German not really heard much in modern times, they said. They said that the barracks were haunted by the ghosts of men without faces, only skulls. These men were evil, vile spirits that attacked everyone. Some people came out of these encounters with scratches. A couple of people did not. They said that a faceless skull man caused a cleaning woman to die of fright in the basement. According to the rumors, a Greek cleaning lady was a member of the team of cleaners who were responsible for maintaining, cleaning, and restocking the barracks' bathrooms, kitchens, and work areas. This woman was assigned to clean the basement storage room. Her supervisor saw her go down the stairs to the basement. No one saw her come back up the stairs. They heard a loud series of screams and the sounds of a struggle. The supervisor did not go down the stairs to the basement. He called the Polizei, the German police. The woman was found on the floor of the storage room, barely alive. She whispered to the emergency medical team technician and the police officers that the Gestapo was trying to kill her. She screamed at the supervisor to run. And then the woman died. They said that when the police and firemen broke the storage room door open, the woman was fighting with someone, but they could not see who it was. What's that in the corner? The first responders said that the woman died with a look on her face as if she was frightened to death. They saw that the cleaning woman had cuts, scrapes, scratches, and bruises, but medical personnel did not believe the bruises or injuries may have killed her. She had a look of fright on her face. Word soon spread that her death had something to do with the ghost evil spirits. Something frightened the woman so bad, the shock of seeing it killed her. The basement storage room was terrifying to workers. Women and men, all the workers were reluctant, hesitant to be alone in the rooms, particularly the storage room in the basement of the barracks building. Their hesitancy rose to abject fear after one of the contractors was found unconscious and bleeding on the floor of the basement conference room. A team of contractors were told to install and test conference room video cameras, computers, telephones, microphones, and audio speakers for an upcoming conference and meeting. The contractors were told they could only work in the building, and specifically the conference room, after work hours occurred, so as not to disturb the people working in the room and in the basement offices. Night came. People exited the building, and the contractors were left alone in the conference room in the basement. There was no one else in the building. The team broke off into individual workstations. One contractor started to run the cables from the work area outlets and ports to the phones and computers in the multiple workstations located in front of the large conference table. He told the other contractor that he had to go to the communications closet to test ports and install lines. He left the room, while the second contractor proceeded to install audio, video, and Cat 5e cables in the ceiling. The second contractor was alone in the large conference room in the basement. He thought he heard people whispering, but he didn't take it seriously. He climbed the ladder and pushed the first ceiling panel open. Wires, cables, and foam were all present as appropriate for the cable runs. He finished with that section and climbed down the ladder. He stopped. He thought he heard someone call out. He listened, but no response. He climbed the ladder and did the same thing as before. He reached the back ceiling panel near the wall.
Almost done.
He pushed the panel open. He screamed with shock as he fell back off the ladder to the floor. A horrible face with skeletal hands reached for him, scratching his face.
What is that? Get back.
Meanwhile, the first contractor went on with testing cables, checking wires, and matching connections with ports. He had headphones on listening to music. He heard nothing but the music. And he thought he heard a scream, but he brushed off the sounds he later recalled sounded like whispers of a warning. Beware. The second contractor stared in horror at the skeletal figure emerging from the ceiling. The skeleton was laughing as it descended face forward down the ladder towards the fallen contractor. It was a race as the skeleton crawled down the ladder towards the contractor, as the contractor pushed against the floor to get out of the room. He slid backward across the floor and reached up to grab the doorknob. He almost made it out of the room. No. Something grabbed his legs and pulled him back into the room. The skeleton thing was pulling the contractor back into the room. It held his legs while another skeleton figure emerged from the wall. This thing grabbed his arms, and both skeletons began stretching the second contractor out on the floor like if he was on a rack. The pain was overwhelming as the contractor had broken his tailbone falling off the ladder onto the floor, and the pulling of his arms and legs increased the pain. The skeletons laughed with glee as they pulled the second contractor tightly. The contractor screamed in agony and pain and fear, then blacked out. A third contractor was supposed to work with the second contractor, but he elected to run out and get food, and he returned with hot coffee and food. He met the first contractor in the basement hall with the food when they heard screams in the conference room. They ran to the conference room. They banged on the conference door. They tried to open the doors, but the doors would not budge. They heard screaming still and laughing. The second contractor was screaming in pain, while the two contractors called the police for help. The police arrived and broke the conference room door open.
Step back. Hit the door.
When they broke the door down,
Break it
the
down.
screams suddenly stopped. Mysteriously, the conference room doors opened by themselves. The conference room was pitch black. No lights anywhere. The police officers switched on their flashlights with their guns in their hands and went into the room. They swung their lights left and right, looking for the person who was screaming in the room. There, they saw the second contractor lying on the floor, bleeding and bruised. Look, emergency medical team members were permitted to come in the room and take the second contractor. The police spread out and checked the barracks for whoever attacked the service worker. As they transported the second contractor to the hospital, he regained consciousness. He had to be sedated, heavily sedated, because he kept screaming, "They're torturing me. They were torturing me." At the hospital, the contractor said he had entered the barracks basement conference room to install the speakers and phones. He climbed the ladder to put the speaker cords and wires in the ceiling. He heard movement and sounds coming from the ceiling above him, like someone was on the first floor above him, walking back and forth and talking to others. Then, he said, when he pushed the ceiling tile open, he saw faces looking back at him. They did not have faces. They had no skin on their faces, and they looked like skulls. He fell, he said, and hurt his back. He could not get up. He tried to crawl. But that's when the man said that someone grabbed his legs and someone grabbed his arms, and they began to burn him with matches and cut him with sharp objects. The pain was so bad he passed out. The police investigators asked him who he saw. The contractor said he saw no one after he saw the faces in the ceiling. He said he heard someone talking to him in German, but he also said that this was a different type of German the person was speaking. It was very formal, like a person from a different time and a different age was interrogating him. He said he looked up at the faces over him. He saw an evil-looking man with the face of a skull staring down at him from the ceiling. The man was grinning malevolently as he spoke to the telephone service worker while reaching down to grab him. The man said vicious things as he tried to choke the second contractor. The whole contracting team and their company said they would never return to the barracks building again.
You've been listening to Part 1
of the evil spirits.
Part 2 is coming on Doc Moore's collection of horror stories.
YouTube channel sponsored by Caselet.com. Caselet.com. Design your unique and very affordable phone case with AI. Create your own stunning, one-of-a-kind phone case design using the power of artificial intelligence. Caselet.com brings your vision to life. Shop Caselet.com. This concludes episode 11, part 1. Stay tuned for episode 11, part 2. Doc Moore's collection of horror stories is available in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. www.amazon.com. Check out Doc Moore and the Moore Hunter Band on your streaming platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Amazon, and YouTube, and Pandora. Audio and video production created by Tanya L. and Stephen B. Doc Moore Sr. and the Moore Hunter Band at the Doc Moore Recording Studio, Central Oahu, Hawaii. All content created, recorded, produced, and under copyright by Stephen B. Doc Moore Sr., PhD, Media Productions, LLC.
Mm-hmm.